didn't quite fully grasp, and I
Yes.
hadn't really looked into it yet, is the
Okay.
price books. And
Yes.
it's only because when I was built, I actually built an implementation that was like that, but it was from the opportunity details page, and I wanted to build that out and create new, and it became a nightmare.
Good.
Relating objects.
Yes. So originally, I had recommended to Paul that we do the price books in a little bit of a different way. These were pre-existing before we got in here.
Yeah, those are the ones I was trying to do.
Yes, so these ones here are, he has it, or whoever created them, broke them out by like your different formats that you could sell. So you could sell print, online, or combos. That way they could have different list prices for each of those possibilities. One thing that this does limit you on is now every opportunity can only have one price book associated with it. So if you wanted to sell something that was print and online but wasn't combo, now you can't. You have to have two opportunities for that. You have to have one print opportunity and one online opportunity. So this does limit you. When I talked to Paul originally, he said that's like a very, very small percentage of their opportunities that would ever happen. So he wasn't worried about it. In the future, I mean, maybe that will come up and then we will have to transition. But the alternative is that you have to create one journal for every category. So that would mean that you would have big data print ROW, big data print, big data online, big data combo USA, big data combo ROW. So then you would have like 50, way more products in the system. But that is the way that would allow you to sell the different those different things on one op. So right now today, I think I fixed them all because there were some products that weren't associated to all of these. Let's go ahead and take a look at some products. Where's my products tab? Here it is. I'm gonna go to view all. So unfortunately, there's not a good way of doing this from the user interface. You can do an export and kind of cross-reference to see if they exist in every single one. But in theory, these should all be available in every price book. Whether or not you select print or online, you want the option for them to sell the 3D printing and additive manufacturing. Correct? Or is that not true?
No. I had originally done that, but I had to go back and delete those because some of those journals have never
specific
and will never sell.
Okay.
Online is the only one that has everything.
Everything
is sold by online, but print, a lot of them, Clinko Olmex is going to never ever be sold in print.
So then that's okay. I only did it on the ones that I found when I was doing my data import that were missing. So there were some in my data import that were print, but didn't, and the journal matched, but it didn't have a price. So then I had to go and update it. So I think I fixed all the ones that they definitely are selling. But yeah, I mean, it's really just, it's annoying because you have to go into each one to see, but it's as simple as just editing or adding them to the price book. One thing that will be administrative on this though is right now the price books are named 2016. It kind of depends on like how you guys are planning on doing this. Like if do your prices change annually?
Prices change annually.
Okay. So if you're set, and because you can cross sell into years, is that why it was done this way? So you could have 2017 price books too, and the prices would be
different. So here's the thing. I think I know where you're going with this. If we make price books that be able to change per year, historical data would, link to whatever the new price books are. So then, if journal XYZ increased by $1,000, even in the historical data, every single cell with that journal is going to increase by.
It wouldn't actually increase, but if they tried to sell, like it won't affect the historical data, but it will affect if they're selling historically. So like right now it's 2015. So if these are the 2016 prices, but somebody books a subscription, even though it's in September, for January 1st of 2015, it's going to pull in the list price for 2016, not the list price for 2015 because it's a brand new sale and now it's selling it at the list price for 2016. So it depends on if that matters to you. If that does not matter, it's totally fine. And sales price is adjustable by the sales rep. So even though it pulls in the list price, they can change it manually and be like, no, I'm going to put it back at $2,000 because it was last year and I'm giving them a discount or whatever. But in the future, if that does matter to you guys and you want to be able to still sell once it's like 2016 September, you want to be able to sell at 2016 prices versus 2017 prices, then you'll want to have different price books for that. So then you'll end up with these duplicative price books, which could get out of hand just because you're going to have one for every year. Yeah. Typically, people keep one, to try to simplify the administrative nightmare that it can cause, is why I recommended having one product per like format option, because then you'll only need one price book to do that. And you would just update your price book with whatever the recent one is. Your sales reps would just override the price for the other data, and you'd be fine. So it's just something to think about when you guys are getting ready to load in the 2017. Like, how do we want to approach this? Like, you just want to think about the ramifications of which approach you go, and whatever you decide. There's no right or wrong. It's just like, which way do you guys want to have to maintain it, because it does affect different things. Okay. Okay, what else? Did you have any other questions on products and price books?
Not really. I mean, the linking of the data in Squid, I'm just gonna have to play around with it. There's no ifs or buts about it. It's just like there's so many different like price book ID 2s, yes. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, all right, where are my products?
I know. So Salesforce, the product table is actually called Product 2. For whatever reason, it just is. That's the name of the table. Yeah. And so whenever you are looking at like opportunity lines, there's kind of different layers of how everything connects, because there are all those tables in between. Like, because there is a product with an ID, then there's a price book, which we don't even really see here, even though it calls these price books. This is actually a price book if I click on it. So this has its own ID. But then if I actually click view or edit right here, this has a different ID, because this is the price book entry ID. So there are a lot of layers. So it kind of depends which layer. When you're displaying the data, you want to display opportunity line items. That's the name of the object. But if you're trying to load data in, there's steps. You have to load the product, then you have to load the price books, then you have to connect the product to the price books through the price book entry. So there's different steps like that. But on Squid, I would recommend opportunity line items is the object.
So one of the instances I was working in, this was for the homepage I was finishing up last night. I used opportunity line items, created everything, worked fine, populated everything I needed to, except when I was trying to segment it by I was trying to segment it by a time frame. So what was happening is it was pulling all of the product information for all time, and I wanted to, segment. I want to say, no, I want, more product information for this fiscal year. There weren't any date fields associated with the product. So is that something we implement from the price books, or is that something we be able to do?
You implement it from the opportunity line item. So in the back end, there's actually already a default field that exists. So if we go under customize and then under opportunities, and then it's annoying because they call the front end opportunity products, the back end name is opportunity line item. So under opportunity products and then fields, there by default is something called service date here. Yeah, it's annoying. It's called date in the API label. It's called service date here. We renamed it to start date because it's really meant to be used for subscribers. We're using it as subscription start date. And then we created a custom one called end date. When you're talking about advertiser, it'd be like the flight start date. So like each month, the day of each month, the end date of each month, the start date of each month, the end date. So then you'd be able to get a sense of like, how are we flighting this stuff out? So that would be the purpose of that date field. But the back end name is called service date if you're looking for it.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for, but I would have never service date.
Yep, I know, it's crazy.
My table's gonna be finished.
Okay. What else? So, one thing I wanted to show you that was are you familiar with Conga?
I understand how it works. Okay. Yeah, I haven't actually made any templates, but I know how the data associations work. I've watched like a couple videos.
Okay. I did just want to show you the ones that we created in case like any updates ever need to be made. So there's kind of three main areas, I guess. There's two storage areas, and then there's one that like actually generates like the button you click that actually makes the process fire. So the first thing is the templates. There we have four templates in here. Sorry, and that's because even though we're only generating quotes and invoices, each quote and invoice needs to have the ability to show all the lines or not. So you have to have a template for each of those. Some people would say you could probably have one template and use like merge if statements in it. It gets messy.
Yeah,
so I usually recommend having one template for each thing, like each big thing like that you would want to create, because otherwise you end up with this big blank space. Because even though you put an if statement in there, it thinks that something could go there, so it leaves an empty spot for it. It just doesn't display the data, so then you just end up with these gaps.
It's like rendering, but yeah.
Exactly. It like renders, but leaves a spot for it. So I use if statements when you're just talking about something small, like if you wanted to maybe render one way or another way, but that spot is always filled. Like if it's advertiser, show the word advertiser. If it's subscriber, show the word subscriber. Then you can use an if statement because you're always filling that gap. You're just either putting in the word advertiser or you're putting in the word subscriber. Okay. But if you're talking about like completely removing something, it's a separate template. So let me open up the quote ones and I'll show you what these look like. So we're doing it in a Word doc. You can also create templates in Excel, PowerPoint, or let's see, I think those are you can generate everything in PDF. So you can create it in those three things, Excel, Word, or PowerPoint, but you can also generate any of those things into a PDF after the fact. So we're creating in Word doc, and we're generating a Word doc. You do have the ability to change that later. We just wanted the end users to have the flexibility in the case they generate something and it doesn't look like how they would expect it to. If it was a PDF, they wouldn't be able to edit it. It's not editable PDFs.
Excel, they would just stay
right. Excel, it kind of depends on what you're looking for. Some of our clients like their quotes in Excel. I don't know why. So we're generating it in Word, and that way they can make changes if they need to. But the way, even though there's 4 attachments here, Conga's smart enough to, when they actually generate a quote and they chose to do it with the line items, it would select this one and it would choose only the top attachment here. So these are like different versions of what this quote template looked like throughout time. So it was like the first time I created it, you could look at what it looked like on that day. And then it's like, oh, I realized there was a mistake on it, so I attached another copy of it. You could view what it looked like on that day. It will always take the most recent one. So if you needed to like go back to this one, you could download it and reattach it as the most recent, or you could just delete all the other ones. There's people change their mind kind of back and forth. There's no right way or wrong way. Some people like to clean it up so that they only ever have one attachment on here. I think that's great. Like I could probably delete these because we're going live with that one, the top one, right? So the other ones don't matter. But in the future, it might be helpful as time goes on that each year you change your quote to be able to see what it looked like the year before. And so you might not want to delete them. So that's just like kind of a side note. What else? Let's see. So if I view one of these, I can download it and then we can see what the template looks like. So Conga, their help site, will give you like ways to how to populate this. There are tricks. It's kind of finicky. It's actually very annoying, like getting things to format the way you expect it to.
I took a look at
it's a pain.
Formatting issues. Jesus.
It's like constant. It's a pain to get it right.
The way they do the mounts, like the numbers, like you have to do like 2 hashtags, comma 2.
Yep, and if you like put an extra space or something, it like destroys it. Yeah, we have it here like currency. It pulls everything out of Salesforce as a number, even if it is a dollar figure, so then you have to put the currency format back in. But there is a new tool that they came out with that's helpful, and I can show that to you in a second. It's like the template builder. It like helps you to pull out what these tag names should be. So like in the future, if you added a field for like, I don't know, we already have billing, a lot of the billing stuff, but maybe like you have a shipping via field, and it's like FedEx, UPS, something like that. Like I don't even know if that would be relevant, but let's say you added that and you wanted to add it in here, you would need to use the template builder to figure out what it would actually, you'd have to paste in here to like make that field pull in. There's other things. Let me see if today might not be one. Some fields are like, let's see.
So if I need to make any additions or tweaks to this, you would recommend going through the template builder, because for me it looks like the syntax for, quote,
Yeah.
All the billing information looks pretty similar. So
Right.
if I needed to add mailing address, I would probably use the same syntax.
Right. So it is finicky.
Sometimes that would work, sometimes that wouldn't work.
Okay. Using the template builder is your best bet to get it to work correctly the first time. Otherwise, sometimes I'll be like your invoice template is very similar to this. So I was just copying stuff into this one and then changing the word invoice to quote, and it didn't work. And it's exactly the same. Like, there's a lot of times where it's exactly the same, but for whatever reason, typing it in manually is not the same thing as copying it from the template builder and pasting it in. It's so finicky.
Okay. So I'm using this from now
on. So this, you would grab the existing, you would view the existing one, download that one, and then I'll show you how to get to the template builder in a second. And then you would be able to make your changes. So let's do that next. The template builder exists per object. So it's going to pull in the fields for the object that you'd be clicking the button from. So if you wanted to get the tags for the quote object, you'd have to go and find the button for the quote object. So we're going to go in the back end. Quote is a standard object. Invoice is a custom object. So you would go to those in two different places. But we'll go under quotes, buttons, and links. And what I usually do, and I'm actually going to do it right now so you have it, that way you don't have to affect buttons that your end users are actually using. I usually make a second copy of my button and save it in here. And I call it like admin or something like that, or template builder. And then I can pull it on the page, but not affect the other users from clicking the button. Because basically what happens is when they click this button, it's going to generate, it merges, it opens up an email, it attaches this to the email for them automatically. You never get to that intermediary step where it says, what fields do you want? It skips it all. So the only way to get to the template builder would be to alter this and like delete some of this stuff so that it doesn't skip it and it renders it, and then they'd have to continue. And since you might be making these updates while they're actually using it, you don't want to affect the button they're using. So I'm going to just create a secondary one called template builder that you could pull on the page when you need it and take it off when you don't. So let me just pull off the buttons we don't need, or the pieces we don't need. Okay, so I'm going to save this and I'm going to show you. So since we're using Squid, well, actually that brings me to a point. Quotes, standard quotes in Salesforce, you cannot override the view page. Like, you know how you can view, you cannot override it with Squid. So we ended up using the standard page layouts for quotes. So in this instance, you would go to the standard page and just pull it onto the page layout. For invoices, because it's custom, we could. So you would do that through Squid. But I'm just going to pull that button on here, and hopefully I'm not affecting Mike a whole lot in his training. Everybody's, well, no, it's just they're probably going to be like, what's this template builder button do? And it's like, oh, that wasn't there 5 seconds ago. So I'm just going to put that there.
Yeah, I mean, quote for, I don't have a problem with standard Salesforce. I have a problem with having a million fields. By the way, almost all of those fields that you saw in the back end, all of those were populated for creating a new opportunity. So before, like when I first came here, I called it the wall because there were like, honestly, there were probably like 300 fields on the page. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, you have to scroll this far down.
Yeah.
It's a nightmare.
Nobody would use it. I know, we looked at the same thing. Like when we first started the subscriber project, we were like, okay, how do we integrate them into an existing system that looks like this? We were like, where do we begin? Do we just create more duplicate fields because we don't know what's going on with those ones? And so we want them to have one that works. We were like, how do we blow up the system and start over? So now we added the button to the page. I'm going to go to a test opportunity that we have in here. Test company IDP 2016. I'll show you. So the way to get the tag is to actually go to a record and click the button. So from a quote, I need to go to a quote. We now have the template builder button. So before, I'll just click it and show you what it would look like for the end user. They would click generate quote, and it's going to go through and it's just going to do it. It's going to do the process. It takes a couple seconds. Yeah. And it also depends on like your internet speed and stuff like that. But it's usually fairly quick. It's usually 30 seconds or less. This is actually taking longer than I would expect. There it goes. And then it just puts them into an email that they can send, and they can look at the attachment. So this is like what it would look like when it came out. And this was without products. So this just shows like totals and stuff like that. If it was with products, then it would show all the line items. But so that's what they interact with. I'm going to cancel that. And we need the button to stop before it does that. So that's why we need a separate button. This is going to kind of stop in between there. So what it did is it said, okay, I found the template. It's right here. But it didn't actually merge anything. You would have to click the merge button to like continue. So the template builder exists under the tools and settings. So we can go under there. And then it lists things kind of in a weird way. Master is always the object you're clicking it from. So because we're on a quote, the quote is the master. If we were on an invoice, the invoice would be the master. And then depending on the type of object, like quote is a master detail to opportunities, which is a master detail to accounts. That's why you can see this stuff here too. So you could pull account level data into your template from a quote or a contact or opportunity. Some other records aren't master detail relationships. You would only be able to get the data on their record and not the others. But what's confusing about this one is, so for subscribers, I don't think it'll be the same for advertisers when you get there, but for subscribers, they needed the ability to have products like line items associated with their opportunity, but that are canceled. So they could have a renewal, right? So last year they sold 4 journals. This year they copied their old opportunity. The customer says, no, I want only 3 of those. They mark it canceled, and you can see that kind of down here. But it doesn't actually delete the line item. They're not deleting it because they need to know how many cancels they got. So we can't use the standard quote line items that it pulls in on our template, because it's going to pull in even the canceled ones. And you don't want those to show up on a quote that you're sending them because they don't want it, right? So we had to do something special where we are querying the data. It's just like a little piece of SQL. So it's like SQL, but it's Salesforce's language. So we just
really?
Salesforce's query language. It's pretty much the same. Very small differences. But we just wrote a little piece of SQL to gather the same thing that would have given us, except exclude canceled from it. So I'll show you where we wrote that too. It's in a separate spot. But that's where if you needed to add stuff for the line items, you would get it from the query data section, and you'd have to update your query to pull in any new fields that weren't there previously, or they wouldn't display here. But you would just scroll through and find the name of the field that you want. So if it was called ship via, which we don't have, but I'm just going to choose ship and see what comes up here. You basically just make sure that the format is Word and that you have used text-based merge fields selected. It should do it by default, but if not, you just want to double check. And you don't want to include the label. Sometimes it checks that for whatever reason. So then it would put quote shipping attention, colon, and then the field, but you probably already have that listed in your quote somewhere, or you want it worded differently, so I don't usually include the label. All you do is you click the copy button. And you see how it highlighted yellow for a second? Sometimes the copy button doesn't work. Like, it won't highlight in yellow. So then you go to paste it and it's not there. Just keep clicking it until it highlights in yellow. It's really just kind of weird. It's like depends on like, yeah. So just click it until you see that it highlights in yellow for a second, and then you've copied it. And then you can go back to your Word and paste it where you want it. So we just copied quote shipping attention and we put it right there. And that's where it would display. Once you save this, you just reattach it back in our template where it was saved. So back here where we downloaded it from, you would just attach a new file and it would put it as the first one in the row, and that would then be the one used automatically by the end users when they click the generate quote button, because it just takes the most recent one.
So this is a history of the quotes and templates and how they've changed?
Yes.
Okay.
So like these are probably, because we just went live, these ones are probably like me building one and going, oh, that didn't pull in, let me try it again. Oh, that didn't pull in, let me try, and making updates. We could delete these ones and just keep the final version. It is helpful though, like to be able to go back, like if you make changes and then you load it in here and it doesn't work at all, it's helpful to not delete the old ones until you know the first one is working, because then you can go back to them. It's just like having a backup copy. So you can be like, this one worked, sort of, let's go back to that and start over.
These don't take up any data, so
They take up file storage, but you get so much, and you're probably not storing that many files in here that it would ever even be a blip on the radar.
Yeah, we're never going to worry about that ever.
So, yeah, that shouldn't be a big deal. So that's the process of like updating a template, storing the template, how to like get the fields for the template. I always try to remember after, if I'm done, take that button back off so that it's not really bothering anybody. So it would be the same for Squid. You would just have to add that button from the invoice to the Squid page because it's not a standard page layout. Oh, query ID, that's what I wanted to talk about. So in my button, you'll see so this is my button that it's actually launching when they click it. There's different parameters in here that tell it to do different things. The one that tells it which query to select is the query ID one. So if you ever wanted to make an update to the query it's pulling in, you can copy that ID and then go find it, at least see what it is doing. I usually don't make a change to my existing query. I usually just create a new one, but at least I can see what I was selecting prior, and then I can do the same thing again and add whatever I need. Or I can clone this and just try to do it manually, but it's easier to create a new one and use, it has this thing called a Conga query builder. I'll create a new one so you can see. It makes it so it builds the SOQL for you. So you don't have to remember the format to type it in exactly the way it needs it. So I like to use that. That way I know it's right the first time and I'm not like troubleshooting, like why isn't it working? So then I just renamed like this one the old one because I used to have an old query, but we'll build another new one. I'll show you. Quote test. So you could just type in a SOQL statement here, but I don't. I just click save with a blank SOQL statement. Conga query builder. And it brings you through like a wizard of steps. So then if you did build a new one, you would just need to remember to take the ID of your new one and put it in the quote button instead of the old query ID, because otherwise it's still going to pull in your old one. Okay, so you would find your base object. We need this for line items because we need to remove canceled ones from the ones that are pulled. So we would go and find quote line items in here. Let's see, quote line item, and then next. Then it asks you what fields do you care about. And I always just compare it to the ones I was selecting before, make sure I at least select those, and then I can add to it. But we can select that one, and format, and what else did I have? Discount. And then I also pulled price book entry name. So that you won't find up here because that's not part of the quote line item. It's actually down here under price book entry, and then you got to find it. So product name, I think is what it's called. Let's just check. Price book entry. Yeah. We can also just pull that one on too, just in case. Okay, so next. So we're selecting our fields. Now it's like the actual criteria of ones you want to include versus exclude. So over here we had where the quote ID equals blank, and whenever it's blank, there's these little parameters of like it's basically parameter 1, parameter 2, parameter 3. So this means parameter value. That's what PV stands for. And it's just like an array. If you're familiar with coding language, you always start at 0. So the first one will be 0. But it will put it in for us just by leaving it blank. So we want quote ID equals blank, and price book entry, let's see, oh wait, and canceled is not true, so equals false. So canceled equals false. And then I decided to order it ascending, so all the products would be sorted correctly. So I did that by product name. All right, product name. And then next. And then this is where you can test it to see, is my query working? Because you can go back and make tweaks before you save. Once you save, you can't use the Conga query builder again. You'd have to delete it and create a new query. So, you could put in an actual quote ID. So go and find one. Let's see, where's our quote? I don't know if I left it open. Opportunity, let's go to a quote. So we can put this in there. And it already has this as false. We just needed to populate PV0. So then I can preview that. And it will show me like what it's going to return. So this is the data we would get back. And then if we're satisfied, we would save it. Hopefully you won't have to make changes like that too often. I think most of the data is already in the query we had, but that's how it would work if you did need to.
Yeah, I really don't think, I highly doubt that I'm going to be changing anything within the next year. And by then I'm going to have tons of experience with Conga, so I don't think I have to worry about changing anything like this in the immediate future.
Yeah, no, that's good. And there's different ways of doing kind of what I did. You could write queries, which I actually don't usually do. The only reason I did it this time is because I had to for invoices, because invoices don't have invoice lines. Quotes do, but invoices don't. Invoices need to reference opportunity lines. So because I was going up an object and then back down, I had to write a query. So I was like, I might as well be consistent and do the same thing on quotes. That way it's not like, oh, well, I did it this way on this one and this way on that one, because that's confusing. I did them all the same way. But usually when I'm doing it, you can also build reports. And you can reference a report ID in your button instead of a query ID, and it will run a report. And the PV0 is just a filter on a report instead. And so that can be quicker, like, because making a report takes 5 seconds. Making a query is a little bit longer. Right, takes a lot longer. So that can be easier. It's just certain instances you have to use a query and you can't use a report. So that's another option too. And it's just important, like, if you are editing this, to make sure that you don't remove any of the parameters in here unless you like really mean to, because they all have like a very specific purpose. And that can, like, you can see I saved some of them up in the description. I always, like, whenever I was toggling back and forth between the template builder and this, I was just like deleting the stuff and putting it back in. I was just saving it in the description so I would have it again. But it is sometimes even a good practice to like copy like whatever it is into here before you make a change. That way you have like the old version.
I usually just keep a Word document and just make tons of different inclusions.
Because these ones are, it's again one of those finicky things. Have you built it's not just Conga buttons, it's like any Salesforce custom button. Have you built those? Okay. Yeah. Like if you copy and paste from the saved version of the screen, it doesn't work. You have to copy and paste from the edit version of the screen. Like even Mike just did this yesterday and I was like, well, where did you copy it from? Because if you copy it like this and then click edit and then paste it in here, your button's gonna break. Yeah. Like you have to click edit first, copy it from the description piece, and then it's like very finicky. So even if you're making copies of things, you have to be careful. What else? I think the majority of the conga stuff. I'm trying to think of anything else special we did, because you obviously already know squid very well. There was one thing that actually we did do that I wanted to show you, just in case you did want to use the same functionality for something else in squid. And I think it will help with, you know how we were having the issue where if you like click, let me just open up like a company from Matt Crook. This is a test one. So if I'm in this company, but I click create new opportunity, it opens in a new window, but the company name isn't there. So like for whatever reason, I was trying to make it work, and for whatever reason, the redirect just like, even though I put it in there, it just doesn't do it. And if you run into, I mean, I'm sure it can be fixed. It's just going to like take more tweaking. But there's another way around that, using a different type of button approach. So I just wanted to show that to you just in case like it is helpful at all. So if I go to a page.
Yeah, I think there's I was reading about it somewhere in the support community. You have to build it into a snippet. You have to build a snippet that'll affect the page parameters that load and the page parameters that are taken over
Right.
when it converts. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, no.
It's just like that's what I mean. It's like too crazy. It's like, why? It should just like load in, right?
Yeah, they're gonna make that a feature at some point.
I'm sure, yeah, and then that will be good. In the interim, we have another approach that this is the approach we usually use. Instead of opening things into a new tab and redirecting, we usually do it this way. It does take a little bit more initial work to set it up, but we find that a lot of people like it. So you'll notice the new quote button is actually like just creating it, it's redirecting basically. This is a redirect button. We created a custom button to redirect to the standard quote page. But for invoices, the new invoice button doesn't show up like up above it like that one did. Like that one shows up here because that one's on one of these page titles. This one, we created a global action, but it's a pop-up. This one's actually going to run multiple actions rather than redirect. So there's different actions in here that it's doing. So when you click the button, it goes through like a series of processes, and then it pops it up on the screen. And I'll show you what it looks like to the end user. So if I'm in here and if I go to an opportunity, and I go to invoices, because that's where we created it, it'll put the button here, which is similar to like, you definitely created things like this. Yeah. But it pops it up. Instead of opening it in a new tab, it just pops it up on the existing screen, and if you like cancel or you save, it brings you back. So you don't have that problem of like, oh, I did something and I don't know where I was, because you still are back where you started, but instead it just pops it right up on the screen, and that can default stuff. That we can pass information through a pop-up from Squid without needing to write any crazy snippets. So like that's an alternative. It's just all those buttons would have to be changed, and it does take some time to set it up the first time, but I think it might be faster than writing a snippet. I don't know.
So I'm going to do that universally. The only reason, if you haven't really been able to tell, this has kind of been like a one-man team for the entire development, and I've only been using Salesforce for 4 months.
Oh my goodness.
So, a lot
You're really good for 4 months, by the way.
In fact, when I was making the rendering pages for like record type, that was the first time we've ever conditionally rendered fields per record type. So going back, I'm going to do that once everyone's up and running. Right now I can't sit there and do render.
It takes a lot of time to set it up the first time, but then it's like it almost just makes more sense in the long run. So sometimes it's like
No, it absolutely makes more sense in the long run. But when I was building these pages, I didn't know that was possible even. So now that I do, I'm like, okay, now we're going to go back. And so like when we're rolling this, this entire thing out, once Jen's done, then I can go back to advertising and Jen customize those pages. So, the user base we have for this are very, you want to keep it immensely simple. You want to keep it as simple as possible. And yes, changing a record type and the field changing is simple for us. But I know for a fact that there are so many users that would click the wrong button, see a different page, and have a heart attack because
Right.
they weren't seeing the right field.
The same thing that they're used
to. The problem
to.
is they didn't click the right toggle. So instead of in subscribers, they were in advertising.
Yeah.
They should only see subscribers. But those situations come up and people break down, and that's kind of like not a product of our generation. So I'm sitting here trying to figure out how to
manage
those
that. Yeah.
issues. But people, they don't really, for instance, one of our users completely stopped using one of the instances in Leads because she didn't see her fields. When in reality, all that happened was a couple more fields were added.
Yep.
So the place where she saw company name,
she just had to scroll a little further.
Was, on the right side instead of the left side. But she completely stopped putting in any information because of that.
Gotcha.
So I'm going to take this very slow and then implement stuff like that moving forward. But yes, the pop-ups is something that I wanted to do, but I figured it would be much easier to just redirect them to the pages.
It's definitely quicker. It's definitely quicker to do it that way. I just know that before even Squid's involved, I have had to create custom buttons to do things for people anyways. And a lot of times it's when I introduce a custom object. And if I don't pre-populate things that they're well, I was there and now I have to type it in again, they get so frustrated. Yeah. So it's I just know that's going to be one of the things that they're going to be wait, and then they're not going to remember how to search for it. And then they're going to get confused because they're I'm trying to find it, but there's 7 of them with the same name and I don't know which one to click on when I'm, and it's if you could have just passed it through, it would have been fine, know? So that's why this is another option. Let me go through and show you.
The problem is I found out about the pop-ups after I created all the pages, so I was just shit.
Yep.
Damn it.
They're always coming out with new things too for Squid, so it's things that you couldn't do before. Then all of a sudden it's there, and then you're okay, now I gotta go back and update everything I did before with the new functionality. But okay, so this is actually, it's a little interesting the way you have to approach it. So we have the table, which is filtering off of the model for invoice. So if we go to our models, we have the regular invoice model, but that's only pulling load model data on page loads. That's pulling data in so that they can display it, right? This button is not running off of that model. This button is running off of another model on invoice. We call it invoice new, and it's not actually doing either of these things. It's completely empty of everything because you don't even want it to automatically create a row. We're going to tell it to create a row once it's clicked. That's when we create a row. So you basically just want an exact copy of your other model fields wise, but you don't want to load model data. You don't want to create a default row, and you don't want a max number of records displayed.
Yeah, that sounds pretty standard. I have to do that for the aggregate data.
Cool. So then the next thing is anything you want pre-populated, you just create a condition for it. So that's what makes it easy. So I can pre-populate opportunity ID because I just have a condition that says anytime this button's clicked, opportunity ID equals the opportunity I'm on. Or bill to ID equals the opportunity bill to I'm on. So there's a lot of conditions on here. I think I have 20 because I'm passing 20 things. It makes it easy.
Hello, and see how everything's going.
Going great. Join us.
Good. Well, we thought we'd take a minute. They're doing in-depth
hands-on
training.
Sure. We're just going over some cool Squid features.
Okay, great.
So I'm going to end up creating a condition for each field I want to pre-populate and just basically link 1 to 2.
Exactly.
Okay, that's not bad at all.
There's another thing I'll show you afterwards on tasks. Just remind me, there's a special thing we did on tasks to pre-populate something else. But so if we're continuing on the new invoice, we create our model, we create our conditions to pass every single field that we want to pre-populate. Then let's see, we go back to our button. You create the button, you make it a run multiple actions. The actions will always be pretty much the same. First, you're going to clear out your new model to make sure it's empty when they click it. Just in case, if they clicked it previously and didn't refresh their page, it won't necessarily be empty again. It will remember the old one that they just created. So you clear it out. Then you're going to save the existing invoices that were already in this model, so the regular standard invoices. Then you create a new row for your new invoice. So these steps will always be the same every time you do one of these pop-ups. You'll just change the model that it is affecting. So if it was quote new, you would change it to quote new. Your final thing is you make the pop-up happen. To edit the way the pop-up looks, this link. And then it will pop it open, and you'll use the exact same things as over here. You'll pull in your page editor, field editor, all this stuff. You have a question?
Yeah, can you scroll down where it says invoice?
This section?
Yeah.
Customer number?
The customer number is not rolling into the final.
The final.
We
Okay,
could've-
make a note of that.
Yeah, Mike and I wrote a whole bunch of stuff that was coming up, so
Yeah, we'll definitely
we'll
look
have
through
action.
them.
Yeah, I just figured I thought.
I was looking for it too when she was going through the drawdown. I'm like, wait.
Now, there's no, unfortunate way, of course, there's no way to go into the XML, then pull whatever existing formats are here and put them into pop-ups, is there? Because, from my understanding, you have to build the same page in the pop-up.
3 times, like everywhere you want that pop-up to happen.
Yeah.
That's how I've been doing it. It doesn't mean that there isn't a way. I wonder if you use template, because I think template allows you to do like HTML and stuff in it. I wonder if you would be able to copy and paste in. I haven't tried it.
For that, because that was one of the things. If I'm going to be going back and adding pop-ups to all the creative
Every single one of
pages,
them.
When I first started doing this, I was creating 2 pop-ups for each. And I'm like, all right, I'm basically creating this page twice. One in the page, one in the pop-up.
And then anytime there's an update, you need to go and you're like, okay, I need to edit
Yeah.
the detail page, and now I need to go and edit the pop-up page, and then otherwise the field only shows in certain spots and not others.
Quite exactly what's going on.
Yes.
That's not great.
Yeah. So you gotta remember all the things you have to update every time you're gonna update something.
Yeah, like the billing debacle when we were using billing standard and then the custom billing.
Yeah.
Billing standard was in the pop-ups and billing custom was in the regular, so some user made a pop-up with it and was like, oh, my billing information's gone. I was like,
I know. And that's why it's like sometimes you have too many cooks in the kitchen. And so it's like the rest
Tell
of
us about
the
it.
rest of the administrators that were in here, that's why I was like, oh, there's a lot of admins in here. I hope they're not all like playing with Squid at the same time. But it sounds like that's dedicated to you. So I don't think you'll have a problem. You'll know where things are and you won't have to worry about like people like not. And documentation is always the best thing too. You can also, like you said, you can download your Squid pages into XML, so you can keep a copy of what they were, and then you can put them back if you need to too, which is helpful.
I do that once every 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's good. So you'd build this page exactly the way you would a normal page. There's one difference, is the buttons. You don't want to use like this button, the save and cancel, where like you show it there. You create custom ones, and these are also run multiple action buttons. They're special because you have to close the pop-up. So you on the save one, that one has the most actions. There's you need to block the user interface while it's saving. So we block it and we tell the user we're saving the invoice just in case it takes a few seconds. They're not like, what's going on? Then you save your changes to the new model that you have. Then we unblock the UI. Then we're going to query the actual invoice model. So when this pop-up does close, it shows the one that they just created. Because if you don't query it, they'd have to refresh the page to then see it. Then we're going to close our pop-ups, and then we're going to just make sure that the UI is unblocked. So we always do that last too. Cancel has different ones. So cancel is more simple. You just cancel the model changes that you made in the new one, and then close the pop-up. Because you didn't make any other changes, you don't have to do anything else.
I'm going to leave because you're in very good hands. But my question would be to either one of you, how many of these pop-ups are we creating and where are they most useful?
Good question.
Mike had him on the thing, sorry.
No, that's okay.
He was like, I think, I don't know, when it's used in the subscribers section.
It is.
Said, look at the pop-up.
I can show you the difference here. So right now, most things are redirected. So it's like, you click a button, it tells it to then go over here, right? So like an example of that is from this leads tab. If I click create new lead, it's going to pop open a new window, but I'm somewhere else now. It redirected me somewhere else, right? The pop-up would look more like if I'm on an opportunity and I want to create a new invoice and I click new invoice, it just creates this little page within the page. I can make my changes And then when I'm done, I'll be right back on my invoice again without going anywhere else.
Got it.
And the advantage of this is that you can pre-populate information. So I can click on the new invoice and you see how stuff is already half filled out for me. That's the advantage of using a pop-up. If you use a redirect, it's a lot harder to pre-populate information.
Yeah, it's near impossible. I mean, we pretty much went through it. It's kind of impossible to do it. It's a lot of coding. It's annoying. I'm going to go through and add these pop-ups to all the pages. So like on the company page, when they want to create a new opportunity, it's not going to redirect them to the create new opportunity page like it does now. It's going to create a pop-up that populates the company information in the opportunity, and then all they need to do is fill out the opportunity.
Sounds good.
Yeah. See, that's what we were talking about, standardization across the board on the opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to do. It's on the task list.
There's some fixes where it's not we put upstairs. It's some of the data's not populating into certain fields. I think we'll discuss it more, but I think
I'm sure Mike has a list.
We'll
have to go through all of them.
meeting, I think tomorrow. He said
Okay.
we'll have a call to go through a bunch of action items. Some that would fall under yours, and some that would fall under yours. But we'll divide and conquer that whole.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
So we wrote like 5 pages of notes.
How many do you
Great.
have? Because he knows more than we do. No, I'm kidding. All right, well, it went well upstairs. We thought
Great.
we'd just check in. Yeah,
Absolutely.
me too. You still have cookies? Did you need coffee or anything?
All set.
There's
Thank
coffee
you, though.
and water on the floor, so.
I'm good, thank you.
Excellent, guys.
I got
Thank
an
you
hour
so
left
much.
anyway. I don't need coffee.
Woo. All right, good stuff.
No, it's 4. Wow. Okay.
Oh, the other thing I wanted to show you was how I pre-populate within a table. There's a field on a task that I noticed that on all of the objects, you have the ability for them to click this little plus sign, so they can just like inline add a task. But by default, it makes them then have to choose who they want the assigned to be. And it puts in just whoever the first person in the list is, and they have to choose it. But it always defaults to Bobby because she's the first user, like alphabetically, that it shows up. And so then when you're creating tasks, you end up with it under the wrong person by accident instead of them selecting themselves. It just like is weird.
Okay, so that's my error, but my error for 2 reasons.
Okay.
My error because I had a condition on the model that set the assigned to the user
Yep.
ID. But I guess it's not active.
Well, at the same time, you don't want the condition on the model. You only want the condition on the model when they're creating a new one. Because if you put the condition on the model, then it's only going to show them their tasks in this list. And what if you want them to see other people's tasks, but when they're creating one, you only want it to be theirs, right? So it's like it's this in-between weird spot, and you only have to do this when you're using the inline plus tab and you want to default something that they're creating in the table. There's another way of doing it. There's like another little special thing. Let me go and find it. So under open tasks. So you have your regular conditions. So you're going to default it to the record that you're on. You know, if you're creating a task on an opportunity, you want it to default to opportunity. You want it to not be closed. Great. Those are great because those will always be the case for open tasks. But what about when I'm creating a new one? There's another piece here called actions. And you can add an action and say, when a new row is created in this model, then there's sub-actions related to it over here. And the sub-actions is you can populate fields. So then you can say, when I click new and I create a new row, it starts out blank for like a split second. The user will never even see it be blank. Then I want to update a field on that row. And then you want it to update the owner ID. But you know how normally you can select running user whenever you're setting a condition? You can't select that here. You have to do something wonky to do it. So what you do is you say, I want to do the owner ID. You leave this blank for a minute. And then you create another model. You just call it running user. It's a model of the user table. You're going to load the data. You're going to select one record from it. The condition is ID equals user ID, the running user ID, basically. So you just say, I want to select the ID where the user ID is the running user. And you select 2 fields. And you have to select these, otherwise it doesn't display it correctly when it defaults it. You have to select the full name of the user and the ID. So you need those fields to be in here. And then you can take that little snippet that I wrote in there. Let's go back. This one, actions. It's annoying, how do you have to get here? But then you can pull that model in and pull the first row of that model using like your array. So the first row is 0. Yeah, and that will default it. It is annoying to set it up because then you have to go through and do this on every page that you have a new task possibility. But it will default it, and only in that instance, because then they can still see everybody's tasks. It's not like a master condition.
And to be honest, I didn't even know that the task action, I guess it's the action framework, worked like that. I never even touched action before that.
I haven't even scratched the surface of them, but they're really powerful.
Yeah, I just need time to experiment with these types of things.
Yeah.
Because that is going to change the way I populate. Because the thing is, in order to create the tables, my knowledge was pretty much limited to conditions. So I made conditional sections for everything.
Yep.
So like assigned to a condition, and then if I wanted to show all tasks, I would create a new model, and then I would take off the condition, a different condition.
And sometimes you do have to have new models. It kind of depends on what you want to do. That's what's so annoying. Is it's like I live in like the squid community pages because I'm always like, I want to do this thing, but it's not working the way I expected it to. Like how there's like a million different ways of doing this stuff. So I'm like always there too. And I'm still scratching the surface. Like I don't know half of what Squid can do because it is such a powerful tool. Like I just re-implement certain things over and over again for every client, and I'm like, well, this is a common use case, but I don't know the uncommon things that maybe would be,
Yeah, I've dived pretty deep in community pages. There's some stuff in there that I'm just like, okay, this is way over my head, but the result is really cool.
Really cool,
this
right?
This is what I want to do. But they're really good about it.
Yeah. So those were just the two kind of pieces that I'd noticed that I changed on the ones I cloned from yours that were like, okay, maybe it'd be helpful if he knew how to do that. But everything else, I think you were pretty good on from the beginning. So do you have any questions on it? On anything that I could maybe answer? I'm not a Squid expert, but...
Not really. I mean, the most pressing question I had was that the date field for that, because now that chart I can now put in. I was honestly going to sit there and just do research for like a little bit every day for a week trying to figure that out. But okay, now I know that it's the
service date. Yeah, it's the back end name. I think the front end name is called start date.
Yeah, it's start date and end date, but I would have had even seen that.
What else did we put in here that would be helpful for you?
What are the differences? I think I am gonna because right now advertising doesn't have any of the opportunity price books, and I stood clear of opportunity price books because I was doing the implementation. I was like, no, not today. But since now I know it's easier to work with than I originally thought it was, I'm probably going to implement what you guys did with the opportunity or the price book system.
Yep.
I'm going to implement that with advertising, and in fact, I think I'm going to do Jen first because Jen might need it more. And if I do that with Jen, correct me if I'm wrong, but that would make the conga fly much smoother.
It would make it fly much smoother. There's just the only difference is that we just have to be careful because advertising is very different from the subscriber model. So like the opportunity line item page where they like, okay, I selected my product. Now like what do I enter, right? The subscribers just enter like quantity, price, discount, like very standard basic things. But it sounded like when we talked to Sandy today, there were like additional things that maybe he would need, like impressions may or may not be selected. CPM might be something, or CPQ might be something. So it kind of depends. And so it almost seems like there needs to be like a discussion around like, okay, what would actually be helpful? Is just giving them the product table with a price field and a date field enough? I don't know. And I just don't want to get stuck into like an architecture where then it's like, well, they were using it kind of half-baked. and now it's a problem because we're trying to rip it back out. So that's the only thing. I would just be like careful. Like, it's not that you don't want to do it. It's just that like maybe there's like certain things that you want to dig like a lot deeper in on first, or leverage us if like you have questions
to figure out what they actually need. The unique thing about Jen is that Jen really hasn't been using Salesforce at all. And in terms of advertising, I was talking about regular advertising. They're much less complex. They don't have any impressions, no CPQ, no CPM, no.
Well, they would definitely be easier to implement.
Yeah, they'd be easier to implement. Jen is going to be the harder one. But they haven't really been using the system, so they don't know what data they need to capture, and it's going to be working from the ground up, kind of like subscription, which was nice. It
might be okay. That's the only thing I'd be worried about.
Forewarning.
Is it's like, are we setting it up in a way that if it's not exactly what they need, are we setting ourselves up for like a lot of backtracking, or is it like, we can just like add on to it? So it just like kind of depends.
A lot of their exceptions, they're just going to have to work through a lot of it, because right now they're not using the system correctly at all. And anything that's better than what they have now is going to be better than what they have now. What they have now is the wall.
It's terrible.
It's nightmare.
So I guess the first thing I would think of if I was saying I needed to create some products in the system for them, is you'd want to probably use product family to group them into categories. So how he said there's like webinar versus online, or versus whatever. I would use product family for that, and then each product would be like the subcategory within that. Like I'm gonna see if I can look at one of their pages. Let's find one of their opportunities so I can look at what options they have today.
The only other problem is, I honestly have no idea how Jen functions as a company. So I would pretty much have Paul say on that. Paul is all the, he knows everything about every division here. I'd have him basically, I'd sit down with him and be like, okay, how are we going to do this? What do they need to capture?
Yeah.
What do we need for reports?
See, these would be the products, I would think. Like, I would use this as the product family, and then it would be like leaderboard would be a product, and wide skyscraper would be a product. And then there'd be list prices associated with each of these. You have to have a list price. Sometimes there are departments like that don't have list prices. It's like, well, it's impression based. So it's like whatever the impression cost is at that time. Then we usually just default it to like $1, because like you have to have one for it to like work properly, and then they can just change it. But that's how I guess I would start.
So microsite advertising would be the product family.
Would be a product family, and so would like email banner and these. And so then when you create this product, you would select microsite advertising as the product family. And product family is just a pick list. So in the back end, I think I had started, we can probably delete the ones that I put in here. Because I had originally told Paul we should get rid of the price books and put them in as product families instead. That way you can sell print and online on the same opportunity. We decided not to do that. So all of these are garbage. You can just like delete them and replace none. And then you can create new product families in here for advertising, and then create their products and tie them to the correct product family.
Okay, so that might confuse things with the homepage, because I was trying to figure out how to segment the data for the homepage. Obviously they have thousands upon thousands of records, so I got Apex Heap out there.
I know, I kept having that too.
But the way I segmented the data was by product, so if those are garbage.
It depends on which product table you're referencing. Because if you're doing opportunity products, okay.
Opportunity products, okay.
That would be okay, because that would be specific to that department's or team's opportunities that they're selling. Mm-hmm. So you could say, like, only show me the ones where I have opportunity products of this type. That would be okay. Product family, or sorting by the product table, probably won't work because it's going to be the same product table across everybody, especially journal advertising versus journal subscriptions. They're going to probably have the same products. They're just going to have different price books for different things, one for like the advertising costs and one for the subscription costs, but it's still the same journal. So I don't know if that would help. I think you're going to have to do it at the opportunity product level. But this is where you would add your product families. Yeah. Then when you create your products, you can select it from this list.
So this product family would basically mimic what multi-page lists look like.
Yes.
In old Salesforce.
It'd be like the high-level name of them, yeah.
I mean, if that's all it requires, that should
That'll be the basic. I would say you could at least start with that.
Yeah, because all I'm really looking for right now, and all of what everyone's looking for right now, we need people to have a fundamental system that they can start putting information from. It doesn't, like, perfection is what I want, but I don't have time to make perfection.
Yeah.
Like everyone over time, like, I can't do that anymore.
Right.
But, you know, once Jen's up, then, you know, perfecting the system, I could entirely revamp their system. You know, if I go by product family and then product subcategory, we find out we run into complications later on, I could take a week out and just build a new system after that. No problem. Problem is getting around to Jen. Sorry, I'm just thinking about around.
I'm trying to think too.
Because we're definitely gonna contract you guys to do the conga pages.
Yeah, and we would have to have the products probably to do the conga pages.
Yeah, because that's a prerequisite to then build the conga pages.
I'm just thinking, what else? See, the only thing that I'm thinking is like, I'm gonna pull up one of those conga pages because let me just pause my recording.